Jai Sri Radhe. In the illimitable expanse of time, remote history tends to get progressively obliterated, even as every individual knows hardly anything even about his near ancestors, except for one or two generations above him. It is no wonder, therefore, if the world has lost trace of an Hindu empire of the remote past. Because of unsavory memories of the recent colonial empire of the British and of other Christian and Islamic nations, the thesis that England was once a colony of Bharat is likely to induce feelings of animosity on the part of the British and a feeling of guilt or apology among Bharatiyas. Indian educators and administrators spread to the different parts of the globe at a time when the world was populated by isolated primitive communities who were groping in the dark for guidance. It was something like European migrants going to the wild American continent or the Romans landing in an uncivilized England. The other redeeming feature of the Bharatiya governance of the world was that the Indians, far from keeping aloof or treating the local people as second-class citizens, merged with the people in the regions where they went. This may be verified by look at Siam, the Indo-Chinese states, and Indonesia. All those were colonies of Bharat. They professed Hinduism and sported Bharatiya kingdoms, and yet among their populations one cannot tell who is of Bharatiya and who of indigenous descent. Another distinguishing feature of the ancient Bharatiya Empire was that it was cultural and educational, not political. Territories conquered or occupied were not annexed to be plundered or bled for Bharat, but to be administered for the benefit of the local people by the local people. Yet another special trait of the ancient Hindu world empire was that it constituted an enlightened and progressive governance. The Hindus took with them a philosophy of universal brotherhood. The Hindus did not force on the world any Muhammad or Christ. They also did not burn down others' mansions. In fact, when the Hindus spread all over the ancient world, the building art was hardly known, and it was the Hindus who for the first time built huge palatial mansions, forts and temples. Those buildings were built according to the Hindu Shilpa Shastra, means according to the system of architecture developed by the Hindus in Bharat. In short, you can say Vastu Shastra. It is the Hindus who trained the Arabs, Turks, Iranians and Mongols and the other communities in how to raise big buildings. This explains the similarity between the historic buildings in Bharat and West Asia. That the Hindus had no ulterior motive is proved by the feelings of unalloyed gratitude, love and respect that exist throughout the world for Sanskrit and the ancient Hindu civilization and culture. When, therefore, we assert that ancient England and the British Isles were once ruled by Bharat, it should not cause any resentment to anybody. At the outset, I would like to point out that the very word England is a corrupt form of the Sanskrit compound Anglastan. Sanskrit Sthan has over the centuries changed into land. Lest this sound far-fetched, let us explain. The English word stand as in lampstand or the stand that a nation takes on a foreign policy issue is the Sanskrit word sthan. Similarly, it may be noted that a Sanskrit medical term granthi is spelled in English as gland. These instances indicate that the English word stand is the Sanskrit word sthan. Therefore, the Sanskrit term Anglastan for ancient England has become England. As regards the prefix Angla, viewers may note that the French still call the English by their ancient Sanskrit name, Anglais, pronounced as Anglais. That the Sanskrit name Angla was the original names of the English people is further indicated by the term Angles or Anglo-Saxons. This should leave no doubt in anybody's mind that the word England is the same original Sanskrit word Anglastan, with its pronunciation gradually undergoing a change over the centuries. From this, it should be apparent that the name Deutschland that the Germans used to designate their country is Deutschland. means the land of Daityas, and it is well known that Daitya is an often mentioned community in the ancient Hindu scriptures. The Daitya community derives its name from their mother, the Bharatiya goddess Diti. It is from Diti that the English gets its word deity. Therefore, whenever the term land occurs, it should be immediately identified as the Sanskrit word sthan. That Bharat was a colony of Britain for nearly 150 years is recent history. When Bharat came under British domination, history turned only a full circle, for in the immemorial past, England was once a colony of Bharatiya's far-flung empire. The story of Bharat's vanished and forgotten empire can be reconstructed by the same method by which students at examinations fill up the missing words in a broken sentence. Obliterated history can be rewritten by divining missing links in a broken chain of clues. Traces of Bharat's ancient empire were partly deliberately destroyed and got partly unwittingly wiped out by two successive waves of imperial conquest, namely of the Christians and the rampaging Arab Muslims and their subdued allies. Let us first take up the names of some localities in England. The ending Bury, B-U-R-Y, is common in England as in Shrewsbury, Ainsbury, and Waterbury. This suffix Bury is the Sanskrit Puri, P-U-R-Y, as in Sudamapuri, Jagannathpuri, Dwarikapuri, and Mumbapuri, etc. That this is not far-fetched may be proved by citing the names of Siamese towns such as Rajbury, Cholbury, and Fetchbury. Now it is well known that Siam was a part of the ancient Hindu empire, and that Siamese language is corrupt Sanskrit. This should make it clear that the ending Buri, indicating a locality or township found anywhere in the world, proves that the name was given by ancient Sanskrit-speaking Hindus when they ruled over those regions. It is not surprising that parts of England should still bear Sanskrit terminations, even after all historical traces of Bharat's sway over faraway England have been seemingly thoroughly wiped out. To prove that we are on solid ground so far as this proof is concerned, we may cite names such as Nagaland, Connaught Place in Delhi, or King Circle in Mumbai, etc., even after the end of British rule in Bharat. Now I cite another proof. Let us take the British rule of changing the date in the calendar at midnight. When we come to think of this practice, it is so palpably absurd for everyone to interrupt his deep slumber at the stroke of 12 at night and stagger out of bed just to change the date. Who would ever do it day in and day out all his life? Moreover, at the dead of night, when everybody is fast asleep and it is pitch dark all around, how does one divine whether it is 11:30 or 1:30? This curious practice of the British changing their date at the unearthly hour of midnight derives from England having been a colony of Bharat. Let us explain it elaborately. Bharatiyas reckon the day from sunrise to sunrise. The sun rises in Bharat roughly at 5:30 according to the Bharatiya time. Since there is a 5.5 hour difference between the Bharatiya and Greenwich meridian time, it is 12 o'clock at night in England when the sun rises in Bharat. So when Bharat ruled the world in the ancient past, the signal used to go out from Bharat to the rest of the world that Bharat was changing its date at sunrise. On hearing that residents of ancient Anglistan means England, too had to hurriedly totter out of their beds and change the date. It was then midnight in that far-flung corner of the Bharatiya Empire. History having turned a full circle, Bharat has now blindly and willingly adopted the Western practice of changing the date at dead of the night by its own watch. This is a curious irony of history. The time which Bharat set for the world has been thrust back on Bharat in refracted distortion. We hope a free Bharat would soon return to its ancient practice of observing sunrise as the start of the day and the date. that colonies do in fact observe the time of the parent country may also be proved from contemporary experience. During World War II, Japanese officials dominating the administrations of the vast occupied Pacific regions used to set their watches to Tokyo time. All timings were quoted with reference to Tokyo time, so long as the Japanese held sway in those regions. Likewise, when Bharatiya administrators governed England, all watches there were set to the Bharatiya sunrise time. Here the word watches is used to indicate whatever the time measuring device was then in vogue. That Indians used to maintain split second timings is apparent from their meticulous astronomical expertise. Yet another proof of Bharat having once ruled England is the fact that until 1752 AD, the English New Year began on March 25. That is the exact time of the year when the Indian New Year begins. In 1752 AD, by an act of parliament, England arbitrarily changed over to January 1 as the New Year day. As March 25 marks the beginning of the Bharatiya Bikram Sambat, it is plausible that England was part of Vikramaditya's Bharatiya Empire. Vikramaditya lives in Bharatiya legends. He is remembered as a great monarch. Rulers are considered great only when they control big empires. So, apart from the qualities of dedication to truth and justice attributed to him, Vikramaditya seems to have extended his enlightened administrations to distant parts of the world, including England. That England regarded March as the first month of the year may be further proved by the term Xmas. This term Xmas in fact means the 10th month, because in Roman 10 is written as X and in Sanskrit the word mas means a month. Thus the term Xmas is not only a curious combination of the Roman figure X and the Sanskrit word mas for month, but it is also a misnomer for the week of festivities observed towards the end of December. Equating a month with a week is a blunder of the English language and tradition, because English has lost its Sanskrit base. This may be further proved by the fact that the word December itself is Sanskrit and in fact does mean the 10th month, because the Sanskrit Dese, DEC, means Dasa, stands for 10. A further proof of this is the term decimal, which is the mathematical dot that the Bharatiyas devised for the 10th place. Therein too, deci means 10. Written in Roman, it will be X. The suffix ember in December signifies the zodiac in Sanskrit. Since there are 12 signs of the zodiac, ancient Sanskrit traditions assigned 1 month for each of these signs, beginning with March. Accordingly, December becomes the 10th month as connoted by its name December, means Dasha Ambar. This should make it clear to those familiar with the English tradition that they are committing a blunder in equating Xmas, for example, the 10th month, with the ending week of December. So the Sanskrit terms Xmas and December, both indicating the 10th month of the Hindu year, still used in English and in English tradition, proves that ancient England was a colony of Bharat. Here comes the most interesting part. Even the 10th month celebration, for instance, Xmas, misbelieved to be a Christian festival, is in fact a hoary Hindu Krishnayan celebration commemorating the day on which the Hindu incarnation Lord Krishna, misspelled as Christ and later Christ, since in English phonetics CH is pronounced as K. So the Hindu incarnation Lord Krishna delivered his famous sermon on the chariot at Kurukshetra to his warrior devotee friend Arjun. Lord Krishna's mount was his chariot, which is known as Yan in Sanskrit. That gives us the term Krishnayan, now misspelled over the centuries as Christian. Again, it was in December that Lord Krishna delivered his memorable sermon at the start of the epic Mahabharata war. So Krishnayan means Krishna's chariot. It is a historical fact admitted by all so-called Christians that Christmas is a pagan festival which has a pre-Christ tradition. Commemoration of that famous sermon of Lord Krishna was spread over the world as a hallowed tradition when, after the epic war, all assembled rulers and members of the Kuru clan repaired to their respective regions. They perpetuated the memory of that great war and that great sermon by choral singing and group dancing. Another historical fact admitted by all Christians is that the birth date of Christ is not known. The assumed date, which is December 25, is only a make-believe, impromptu substitute. So neither December 25 nor the Christmas festivities have any Christian basis, but both have a Hindu-Krishnayan basis, namely that the day on which Lord Krishna delivered his famous sermon, the Gita, is literally in song. It is commemorated by so-called Christians or Krishnayans, choral singing. The French still use the ancient Sanskrit name for anything English. The French term Anglais, pronounced as Anglais, is a corrupt form of the ancient Sanskrit word angula. Angula means finger. England was known to ancient Bharatiya rulers as Angladesh or English land, alias England. Words like Anglican, Anglicized come from the same ancient Sanskrit word, angula. This is yet another proof of England having once formed part of an Bharatiya empire. We may likewise point out that the King's English that English men and women speak is all Hindu King Sanskrit. Here I am giving few examples. English cow is Sanskrit go. English sweat is Sanskrit swed. English upper is Sanskrit upar. English man is Sanskrit manav. English mouse is Sanskrit musak. English you and we is Sanskrit yuyam and bayam, etc., etc. But I leave that to be dealt with in detail later. That is yet another proof of Sanskrit speaking Hindu kings and officials having once administered affairs in England. The English title Sir is itself the corrupt form of the Sanskrit Sri. So when the British sovereign confers the title Sir on the chosen elite, the British monarch unwillingly follows an hoary tradition laid down by Hindu kings who ruled over England. Conferring the title Sir alias Sri automatically involves a monetary grant, also as Sri in Sanskrit does in fact mean wealth. The English call themselves Arya, but they seem to be oblivious of the connotation of their term they have been unwittingly using. In Bharat too, the Hindus call themselves Arya, their own way of life. The Hindus call Arya Dharma. In calling themselves Aryans, the English are unwittingly and uncannily right. What they should understand by that term is that they once followed the Arya Dharma, alias Vedic way of life, alias the Hindu Sanatana way of life. That is equivalent to saying that once in the distant past, for millenniums, Englishmen were all Hindus. I rest my case here. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hare Krishna. Jai Sri Radhe.